right. Being 7 o'clock on Thursday, January 11th, 2018, call the meeting to order. Finance Committee. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Shouldn't follow Mike's lead.
She's going for the round.
Okay, first item, we have a new committee member appointed for 1 year by the moderator, Rick Neeser. Maybe a quick introduction of names and faces. Neil?
Neil Dixon, congratulations, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Laura Backus, welcome.
Laura?
Sarah Backus?
Oh, okay.
Sarah Sansom.
Earl Bohr.
Mike Fenimore.
I'm Doug Willardson. Earl skipped me.
Next item, approve the minutes from 12/7/17.
I make a recommendation, we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Absent?
I
Abstained?
think I was absent, yeah.
2 abstains. Next item, the town administrator's report, the monthly budget report. Start out with.
Yeah, so sent out the detailed report earlier in the week. But I'll hand this out. So what I'm handing out is I just took the report and I took every org, which is how we
Every what?
every organization within the
Oh,
budget.
okay.
So for each department, there's typically 2 orgs, sometimes 3, the personnel, the regular expenses, and then sometimes there's a capital one.
Yeah.
So I took all those organizations, and any that were over 50% spent at the end of December, I put on this list. So we can go through these and then should cover most of your questions. You want one? All right, so the first one, under selectmen salaries, that's where we budget like the vacation incentives and sick leave incentive and those things. So those were paid out in July. So that's why it shows a larger portion of that being spent. So that, I don't have any issues with that one. The next 2 are the finance committee, so those are your fault if they're over. No. The next one, the assessor's revaluation. So the revaluation is in a separate budget, and so that is 100% spent. But there's only 1 bill a year, so that's on target. The next one, collector expenses. There's one, an encumbrance that I need to fix. Once that's fixed, it'll go back to normal. It'll be running fine. So don't really have any issues there. Under town council, we are trending quite high. We had some of the police things going on over the fall, so that would higher than normal. But the last couple of months I've been good, and so if I continue that trend, we'll be okay. If not, I could potentially have an issue. The next
Bills are, how do they bill on a monthly basis? I mean, how far behind?
yeah, it's a monthly basis. So
Okay. And there's there's nothing under the police department?
no, I mean those were all legal costs for the hearing that we did.
Okay.
So
To the chair. On the town council, do all departments that use town council have to come through you now?
Yeah, I mean, they
Or they
have
have
to
carte
notify
blanche
me.
to pick up the phone and
No,
ask a question?
they know they need to talk to me. I mean, if it's a minor thing, they can follow up on a conversation with them. But in general, if there's an issue that they need to talk to council, they have to go through me.
Is, again, through the chair, is the town council charging us for a phone call? For argument's sake, if I were a department head and I called up and I said, say, one of my employees stubbed their toes, what am I gonna do? Is he charging me for that phone call, or is that a complimentary phone call?
So, I mean, it's hard, it depends. To be safe, they charge us for almost every time they call. But they work with us too. Like, we have a good relationship with them. They don't charge us for everything, but,
You do know that there was and should still be a policy that was voted by the Board of Selectmen that no departments or department heads can pick up a phone and call to an attorney without the express permission of the town administrator?
yeah. No, and I know what issues they're calling about, but if there's like a follow-up phone conversation about the same issue, I don't make them recall me and say, I have another question to ask them. I'm okay with
So,
that.
so you're aware
I'm aware
of
of it.
issues per se, and
Yeah.
you might not be aware of the individual
Yeah,
interactions with
And
the...
I don't want to be. No, They're going to make a follow-up conversation on about something they already discussed.
And we use more than one legal service,
We do.
a couple of three or more?
Typically just two.
Thank you.
Okay, so we were on the next one, Personnel Board. This is very minor. Those are our pre-employment physicals for the most part. The next one is data processing, that's IT. So 76% of that budget has been spent, but a lot of those are services that were done, they're service contracts that we pay early in the year, or we bought equipment at the beginning of the year. So that shouldn't be an issue.
Well, I'm questioning one item, under
Yep.
professional services, we're at 130%.
Yeah, because they put,
So part of me's thinking this budget, and part of me's thinking for the new budget.
yeah, so I am gonna go through with the IT director, because, yeah, there's 130 spent in that one line, but then the next line below it is, they've hardly spent anything out of it.
Right.
So, it's just how they coded it. One's professional services, one is what is, like, computer supplies or something. Let me just double check.
There was another one under their, employee training was at 76% too, so.
Yep, so we had we had a train, a lot of that's still under encumbrance, but we had a training early in the year that we won't have again, so that makes that run high. Yeah, so, yes, professional services is running a little high, but under computer equipment maintenance, we have extra money there. So the whole organization will be fine. Let's see, so the Conservation Commission, typically they are within the code enforcement budget, but one bill wasn't in it, so I might just readjust that, but that one's not a big deal, it's only $30. Code enforcement expenses, they're at 78%. This one, again, might be an issue that I need to keep my eye on it. This is where we pay the vendor that's acting as the town engineer for all of our projects. That's one typically where he gets paid for if it's a town-related project. If it's an applicant's project, the applicant's fees pay for him. ADA committee, that it's 100% because it's something that they transferred over from the previous year to get paid in this year. So police capital outlay, it's showing 76%, but that's 2 vehicles that they bought, so there actually might be some extra money there. And then the next one, the fire capital, that is for a lease for the fire department, and so that's a one-time payment.
Can we go back to the police department?
Yep.
Under professional services, they're at 743%.
Let me pull it up.
That's why I was wondering, asking earlier about the legal.
The year-to-date. I can look that one up, because I'm not sure exactly what was under that budget. Do you want me to do it now, or do you want to wait? I'll just send you a follow-up email about what that is.
Yeah, we'll just put it on the phone. And again, about the other charges and expenses, which is a broad category, but
Yep.
it's 143%, again, for the police department.
Yeah. I'll just follow
So those
it.
two items, yeah.
Inspectional services. On the personnel side, we've had a part-time employee helping out because we've had people out sick. And then on the expenses side of that, it's showing an encumbrance for when we tore down the building, but that was actually already paid for, so that when that encumbrance is released, it won't show it as being spent, and that'll bring that back down, so that's not an issue to worry about. The next two, dog officer and seniors.
On inspectional services?
Yep.
The car allowance, I thought we had questioned that a month or two ago, and it was $700. And I thought that was a one-time charge per year.
The car allowance. Yeah, so,
And it got charged again, so now we're at $1,400.
yeah, no, so it didn't get charged again. What happened is that, I think it got carried over from the previous year, so it's showing as a.
Well, it showed up a month or two, yeah.
Yeah, right. So that just needs to be cleared out, and that'll go back to $700.
So it is
Seven.
$700 once a year for a car.
All right, so if you remember, for both the dog and the senior center, we transferred all the electricity and the heating bills into one account. So the expenses for the heating and electricity haven't gotten transferred to that one account yet either, so
Yeah.
that's why it's throwing those off a little.
Yeah, but under that, I think we bought a used truck a couple of years ago for the dog officer.
Was it used or new?
No, it was, pretty sure it was used.
I thought it was used.
Used?
too,
Used?
Yeah. It was fairly new, but it was,
Yeah.
it wasn't brand new. But anyway, they only budgeted $100, and now it's at 273%. And again, I'm thinking, as we budget for next year,
Yeah, maybe bump
$100
that
for a
up a little
vehicle
bit,
that's
yeah.
getting old.
I
is
mean,
kind
that's
of-
not even an oil change
No.
Right,
twice a
that's-
year.
Yeah.
To the chair. On the dog officer, they do a fantastic job. I've seen them out there day and night. When they collect a fee for a service from a household member for an animal that they have picked up, is that turned into the town, or do they use that in their budget for food and shelter, or what?
No, it's a general fund revenue.
It goes into the general fund?
Yeah. I'd have to look up what actual account it goes into, but yeah, it's not a revolving one.
Well, to the chair, one more question. If she has 5 animals, and she has to feed 5 animals 5 days a week, and then all of a sudden she gets a burst of 5 or 10 more animals and has to feed them, how does she collect the additional monies for the additional food and the additional shelter? Is there a slush fund? Is there some manner in which she can do it, or she has to put in a requisition after she lays out the money?
Yeah, so that Yeah, that would just come from our general budget. But you're right, maybe it makes sense to look at it and see if we want to do a revolving fund or something like that to address a situation like that. I don't think it's been a huge problem in the past, but it's hypothetically, yeah, that.
Well, I noted this week there were several problems with animals left out in the cold 7 consecutive days of below zero weather, that animals were left out in the cold, and she was picking them up. So I was wondering what occurs or what happens in that instance when she has to feed and house those animals.
Yeah, so to feed those animals, it comes out of her budget here. So if there was a big run on it, a lot of animals.
But she has a way to put in a voucher for extra monies in case of an emergency.
Yeah, she can. I mean, if this budget got overspent, I'd have to come to you to ask for additional money.
And I think another thing is there's a lot of donations that she,
there are.
food and
Yeah,
things
so
like that.
through the chair, that's what I was gonna say, is I work a lot with Michelle, with the animal control officer. And when animals come in, we literally put a plea out there and say, please help us.
It's a very compassionate town, I think it's.
Well, everybody's complaining donations have been down.
They have been down.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they were up when we had the hoarding case, but now it's, forgotten. It'd be nice if we could help them.
Thank you.
We give them a little FaceTime right now.
Yes.
All right, library, so the majority of the books and the software program in CW Mars, that's a one-time payment that's made early in the year, so that looks like it's running high, but it's actually fine. The recreation expenses, it's right at 50%, I'm not worried about that. The interest is right at 50%. The assessments, that's the state assessment, so it's showing as 100. The retirement assessment, the 2 payments are due in July and September, so they're both paid. Then, let's see, we got other employee benefits. So this one is where we pay people out if they retire or we had a couple people pass away. So this will be a problem, and I'm going to have to get a transfer for this account.
Now, back to the retirement of debt.
Oops. Yep.
I see, interest is paid, interest on debt is being paid appropriately, but the retirement of debt is, we've only, paid a little over $80,000 so far this year.
Yeah, a lot of the payments are actually due in June. That's kind of nice because we get to keep that money for most of the fiscal year. But yeah, they all have an exact due date, so we just pay them on the due date.
I'm just confused on how I mean, normally, as I pay bills, you pay principal and you
And
pay
interest.
interest, but we're paying the interest on a monthly basis,
No.
but not the,
Yeah,
Through
it's,
the chair, I think what we do is, based on the debt schedule that we saw last year, it's paid twice a year,
the interest.
December and June.
I mean, all of the payments, they're due at different times, so, so there's a couple that are in March, there's a lot in June is the bulk of them.
But it's not like your normal mortgage
No,
payment.
no, that it's a,
It's
standard
interest
monthly.
only for this payment, principal and interest on
Right,
the next
yeah.
payment. It's whatever
So-
that
it's
schedule is.
just that that's right on schedule for interest. It's right at 50%.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, and it might be that the interest payment's due in December, and so we
Oh,
paid it. and-
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering.
Okay, so that covers all of them. Are there any more questions, because on the full detail of it?
Through the chair. I know the accountant line's on here now. We obviously brought in an interim accountant. Do we have any idea of how much at the end of the year we're looking at potentially being over?
Yeah, so, we're gonna have we have a firm that started this week, so we're paying them, we agreed to pay them hourly for the first couple weeks while we figure out exactly how much we're gonna need them here, and then we're gonna settle on a rate for till we get a permanent person in place. But in broad numbers, previous town accountant was making $90,000, a little under $90,000, and so for 6 more months, when we get someone in between the firm and another person, I'm assuming we're gonna need to come up with another $45,000. Yeah.
Okay, next item, the financial calendar review. January doesn't seem to be a very,
It's actually the busiest month for me, but
yeah, but it doesn't appear.
doesn't show up though.
Yeah, the property tax assessment, but that's already, and notification of estimated net school spending for the next fiscal year. I believe the school committee has put together a first draft of their budget earlier this week. It's online too, if anybody wants to take a look at it. Essentially, I think it's reflecting a 5.4% increase. But again, that's a first draft. And there'll be a number of more drafts, probably before the dust settles. Next item is the compost facility revenue and expense statement. I think I emailed that to everyone.
So I
But I
have
think,
it.
yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The numbers don't.
Yeah, so there was I'll hand this out. We can talk about it.
And I think while that's being handed out, I think that's a service that is used by a fairly small number of households in the town. And,
Well, it's,
certainly not everyone.
yeah,
And
just,
it almost seems, I think the idea was a couple of years ago when we decided to split the expenses from the beach and the compost facility. The idea was to get a handle on the expenses and make sure that the revenue covered the expenses for those 2 areas.
yeah. So if you look, this front page is for the calendar year 17 operation of the compost facility. And the second page is, we handed this out previously, it was calendar year 16. So we increased the fee from $25 to $40 because at the end of 16, we noticed that we had an operational deficit of, if you look at just the hard costs for operating the compost facility and not some of the sunk costs of the DPW employees that are already working, it was in the hole about $4,500. So we increased the fees to help cover that. And when we increased the fees, if you look on the front page, rather than selling 369, we only sold 258. So the amount of revenue is almost flat.
Now, I think another factor in that, those are paid fees, correct?
Yep.
Stickers, not the stickers that were given out
For veterans.
veterans or, yeah.
Yep, so on the second page in calendar year 16, we gave out 187 veteran stickers, and in calendar year 17, we gave out 218. So,
So I think the goal should be that, I mean, my feeling is that should be self-sustained, just like the goal we're trying to do with the beach. Not a revenue producer, but certainly not an expense that hits the general budget. And is shared by everyone, every business, every family, and only a percentage use it. It seems like there's two ways you have to go. Either raise the revenue or lower the expense.
yeah.
And I think there's flexibility in each
Yeah,
way. But
so-
I think the goal should be that it should be a self-sustained entity, program.
Yeah, and that's, it's up to the Board of Selectmen if they really, how much they want to pursue that. Because, you know, raising the fees obviously didn't make it self-sufficient. So, you know, it's basic economics. We exceeded the supply and the demand.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I think what hurt also was, and, you know, I'm a veteran myself, but I ended up paying the $40 fee. And I think giving the veterans free access to the compost hurt the
Oh, that's
revenue
what I'm
on this.
saying.
Yeah,
That's what
hurt
I'm
the
saying.
revenue on this.
I think it needs to be brought to, you know, the selectmen,
No,
or
absolutely.
whoever, if we're all responsible for a budget. I don't know as a, you know, I use the facility too, but I don't think everybody does.
Yeah. No, it's true, about 500 people, give or take a little bit, use it, and it's costing about $5,000, or it's in, yeah, it's costing taxpayers $5,000 because it's not being covered by
Right.
the revenue brought in. So is that a cost that the town should be willing to pick up? And that's a policy decision that the selectmen should make. I think last year, when it was brought to their attention, they said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to increase the fees to try to cover it, but that didn't work out as hoped. So I can bring this to their attention again, but like Earl said, there may be opportunities to address some of the costs. Although there aren't that many costs, it's someone,
It's mostly labor.
yeah.
Through the chair, is there a way to modify the hours? Because I think that if it was available to people that work, that aren't in town during those hours, we would sell more stickers.
Yeah, so to keep it open at night or on the weekends, we're contractually obligated to pay the highway employees overtime for that. So, you know, we'd have to guess, keeping it open on the weekends more would make more people buy stickers and cover the cost of that. That's difficult to say.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
How many senior citizens have signed up for reduced rate in their taxes or to work for the town?
Yeah, there's quite a few, so that's actually something that we've already discussed, is having someone sit there, the employee that's there already, having at least him sign up for it and have that help bring down the costs. So that is definitely a possibility.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did include in the packet some other communities. I was a little bit surprised that that other communities just give it away for free. It's just a regular service. Like Uxbridge gives it to town residents for free, but charges Douglas residents to use it. Southbridge was free. Auburn had a $20 fee, and Dudley for just leaves and grass was $35. So
Through the chair, these communities that you looked at, who operates the landfill? Does the town operate the landfill, or do they subcontract it out, like,
So I'm not sure on all
I think
of
that
them.
makes a difference.
Yeah, so like I believe Southbridge probably has a contract to do theirs, so I can look into that.
Any other questions on that? Okay, let's move on. Old business, the library building project update.
The library building project is moving slowly. Their completion date now, without the paving and landscaping, is looking at April 12th.
Oh.
Originally it was March, then it went to April 5th. Now
I
it's
heard
April,
May, I thought.
Well,
April 12th.
so.
Well, you might be hearing May from outside sources.
Yeah, so we met the other night and they did, the contractor's timeline does say, April 12th. But there's still a lot that's unknown, so one of the things, if you look over at the building, sorry, I don't want to steal.
No, I was gonna turn most of it over to you
Yeah.
anyways,
So
because you
they're
got that.
putting up insulation, where the windows are going because they're having a hard time getting the glass manufactured and getting here. So that's something that's kind of holding up the project, and we don't know for sure when that's gonna be able to get in, because it's hard to do anything on the inside when you don't have your windows in. So the April 12th, or whatever day it was, is the day that the contractor currently has penciled in, but our project manager is, doesn't quite believe it.
Right. And the reason why they're putting up the foam on the outside where the glass windows are going is so they can start taping. It needs to be
Yeah.
fully enclosed
Yeah.
before they can start doing the taping on the drywall and everything else. So that's why the foam board and that is going up, so they can at least get started in there, putting up the drywall and the taping. But like Doug said, they're having a big problem with the glass manufacturer supplying the windows on time. And also, at the same time, finding labor personnel for certain things.
Oh, really?
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying construction trades across the state, people are having difficult time finding labor.
So,
That's a good thing, like that, and
Maybe that's,
I think the biggest thing.
is
we can-
everybody so busy?
And I was, Doug will vouch for that, we were assured, I had two questions at the building committee the other night, and one of them was, and it was answered, that nobody is comfortable with the contractor's end date of April 12th. And then my other question was that, what effect is this all gonna have on the budget? And we were assured that it will have no effect on their budget. And they have, you can say yes or no, agree, that they have no intentions of coming back to the residents for more money for anything if it
yeah.
does go over. And
I
that's,
feel very
that was my
comfortable
big,
saying-
big concern, that, you know, the building will get done when it gets done, but as long as it's not gonna cost the taxpayers any more money.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the only thing, you know, that as the date goes out, would be holding another set of elections
Yeah.
in May, if we have to.
Who ends up paying for that?
Yeah, to the chair. Haven't we some sort of an insurance policy for date completion?
Yeah, there's like general condition dates, if they don't meet certain dates, they're required to pay us additional money. There's fines for them doing that.
So it'd be up to the clerk of the works or
Yeah, and they're
project
taking-
manager to make sure that everything
Yep.
is,
And they're doing a good job on that. One thing though, since we purchased the other two properties for the parking lot, I mean, that changed the project a little bit, but that it's still being monitored closely. And they keep track of days very closely.
But it does seem like it's looking like the May elections will be split into areas and require
Yeah, and
extra
I
staff
don't,
and expense.
I'll have to look to see how much that even costs us. I don't think it's very much.
I know we budgeted more.
Yeah, 'cause it's like at the church, so I don't think they, it's set an exorbitant.
Are they agreeing, is there already?
I don't think
agreement
we've
in place?
even got to that point yet.
Okay.
We are very lucky because if, if there are delays, usually the big costs are you're renting space somewhere else.
Mhm.
We don't have that issue here. so.
Right.
Through the chair, one more question. Have you seen an increase of the use of the library facilities now that it's in the town hall? Or has it decreased since they started the project?
I mean, I have,
Can we
nothing
get a
compared
report?
to, because it's always.
Can we
been
get a
town halls
report on
and
that, if
stuff.
there's an increase in the usage of it?
Well, you'll have to go through the
Through the
library, not the building
Yeah,
committee,
that's-
but the
Yeah,
Let me
library.
write that down.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll ask the librarian what the usage is for the time it's been at town hall.
I sure as heck curious to see if building this monstrosity
What's gonna
is
change
gonna be a
that?
benefit or
Through
a
the chair.
deficit.
What's gonna change that?
Huh?
What's gonna change? I mean, they're not gonna tear the building down.
Well,
It's gonna be what it's gonna be.
we housed a lot of homeless when the old one was there. What are we gonna do with the
Yeah,
new one
you
there?
know, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a good deal for the town.
As you can tell, I'm anti-library.
The financial policies, I think Doug's gonna be presenting it to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, so I sent it to, you guys,
Yeah.
just for any feedback. I mean, we've already had a chance to look at it, I feel like it's several times.
And I couldn't even tell what,
Yeah,
changed.
yeah, there really was nothing. There are a couple like, very much semantics, I'm like, who cares about that? So the department heads have looked at it, you've looked at it, I gave it to the Board of Selectmen, so they're gonna discuss it at their meeting in February, and then they'll formally adopt it at their meeting in March, when they'll have a full board. So you're more than welcome to come to the meeting in February and express your opinion. I don't think anyone, they're pretty generic and everyone seems to agree on it.
Yeah, I haven't heard
So
any
I don't think there's
feedback.
gonna be any issues.
the next item on the agenda is the audit review committee that we've been discussing. It was on the Board of Selectmen's agenda for, this past Monday. And, they did, accept that that idea. And we will be putting together an audit review committee, and they nominated Randy Becker, to be a selectman representative on that committee. So we should be getting the audit, the town audit back.
Yeah, fairly soon. I will follow up with the auditor. I was expecting around the end of the month, beginning of February.
Next item, capital planning. Did they turn,
They're due Friday. The
so
capital
that'll be capital and, budget?
And budget requests, yeah.
Okay.
And so who was it that wanted, that we're going to meet separately just to discuss capital?
These three characters.
Oh, that is a bunch of characters.
So that's for capital.
Yep.
Yes. So we'll probably set up something in February.
Yeah.
The next thing, the item, is comparison of town fees with Leicester, Oxford, Millbury, and Northbridge. Doug had asked us to, survey these towns to compare our fees with theirs. And Laurie and I, have done that and submitted those findings to Doug, along with, there's some fees that other towns charge that we don't charge, and in reverse, there's fees that we charge that other towns don't charge, but we gave Doug all of that information, and I think,
We in the ballpark?
I think it, we're high in some places and low in other places.
So we're in the ballpark.
Yeah, I don't think anything really jumps. Did you have a chance to review it? I think some
Not
of
in
the fees,
depth, but, yeah.
yeah, I think some of the fees could come up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're, in the ballpark is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, do you want to meet and go over that in a little more detail?
The fees?
Yeah, just what you found.
Sure.
Okay. But I would like to maybe put it all in one spreadsheet so it's easy to read across the board. But you're right, there's so, different towns charge things different ways. It's sometimes a little hard to do the apples to apples comparison.
Okay, on to new business. Are you ready to make a,
Yeah, so, we don't have the exact contract finalized yet, but I was going to request, $1,400 a week for 10 weeks, so $14,000. I mean, it may not be a full 10 weeks, maybe a little more, but I think that would get us close to what we need to be.
and that's a figure that's pretty well set, except for this week and
Yeah,
perhaps next week. But have they been 3 days into it yet this week?
They were here 3 days, 1 full day, 2 half days.
And that's it for this week?
Yeah, they're not coming tomorrow, but
Yeah.
they'll be in for sure 2 days next week.
To the chair again, do they anticipate, after looking at our books and our financial state, any problems in getting work done in the 10-week period?
I think I mean, they haven't been here that long, but I think we're gonna be fine. I mean, right now, the next big step is end of year, which is several months away, so we'll be okay. Focusing on putting the budget together right now.
Now, are you putting together an ad, or
Yeah, it's already out, actually.
it is?
Yeah, they put that. One more question to the chair. Are they anticipating having to call the former accountant for any assistance, or?
That'll just be on an as-needed basis. So far, we haven't needed to.
And are you looking for a town accountant, or is it expanded to any extent, or have you?
I think we're just looking for the best candidates available, but we know we have a limited budget, so
Yeah.
right now it's been posted as just a town accountant. And we'll see what kind of results we get with that.
But it might be brought up during the interview process, and no?
No, it could be, and if the candidates that we get are not what we're hoping for or expecting, maybe we'll just re-advertise then,
Yeah.
not even go through the advertisement process.
To the chair again, aren't we, isn't a financial director on the ballot for the charter review, from the charter review?
No, it's not.
Still town accountant?
Still the county account?
The town account's not even on the, addressing the charter at all. It was the.
Well, there was an amendment on the floor to move.
Yeah, but
The
that.
reporting
that failed.
is hired by
Mm,
the town administrator, that changed, but no title change or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even that, being appointed by the town administrator, that wasn't even allowed to be voted on. Right, yes.
Yes.
It wasn't allowed to be voted?
No.
Yeah, the other position's moved, but the town accountant one had to stay as it originally was in the charter. There was a notice issue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
Oh,
the
okay.
accountant was already
Yeah.
appointed by the selectmen.
Yeah.
The other ones were elected.
Okay.
But I thought, through the chair, I thought there was some way that if we could have another special town meeting to get that on the ballot.
Oh, anything's possible, but.
Yeah, I mean, that would be possible if we were to hold a special town meeting in advance of the ballot, as long as there's time to get the ballot prepared before the election, that could happen.
So we have a request to transfer $14,000
So moved.
the reserve fund to the town accountant's salary.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Actually, can we make it not the town accountant's salary, but the,
Yes.
so we'll have to split it, because some of it will be professional services. So actually, the 14,000, let's put in as professional services, so that's for the next 10 weeks.
And that'll be under the selectmen or
No, under the
Under
town
ac-
accountant,
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
professional services?
yeah.
And then when we hire a town accountant for the rest of the calendar year, fiscal year, I'll have to come back and make an additional request. Or by then, it might be close to town meeting and put on a town meeting.
So will you amend your motion to transfer from the
Reserve fund.
reserve fund to
So
the
amended.
temporary, I mean, to the
Professional
town
services.
professional
Yeah.
services?
Professional services.
Need a second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And your reserve fund is 35,000, if I remember correctly.
You have that paperwork with you to be signed?
Just paperwork for that. If, when I get the minutes, I can use that as the backup.
Okay, next item is future meeting dates during the budget cycle. As Doug had mentioned, that the department heads will be turning in their work by tomorrow.
Is
I'm sorry?
Yeah, tomorrow.
With, through the chair, we've always had March and April as the most strenuous months for the budget. With us not having to take up the school budget the way we used to, and they run through February, I believe 26th or 27th, they have to get it in. I would suggest that we start in February, around February 12th or 15th, and do every week or every 2 weeks on the budget. We could always cancel a meeting in between.
Well, I'm just, I'm actually thinking that the governor's message will be out next week, the 24th. And I think there's gonna be a lot more so on the school side, but also on the town side. So I think it's probably good to not wait till sometime in February.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it might be better to have a subcommittee here instead of all of us going through the budget. I mean, we'll all go through the budget at our meetings, whether we establish them, but a working subcommittee to work with Doug and going over the requests, which is, we haven't really done since I've been on this committee. I don't know if you did it in years past, to look at the actual numbers that the department heads submit.
What we had department heads in the past
Right.
before us, and then that ended a few years back.
Yeah.
But we had all of the department heads, that's why we had weekly meetings back then.
Yeah.
But a subcommittee would be all right.
Just to at least bring that to this committee, and then if we have to, bring any department heads for further explanation, then we can do it.
Yeah, so I actually really like that approach, because when I have my finalized budget at the end of February, and you guys start asking questions and picking on it, it's kind of like my baby, and I feel bad. So if I can get your input in it before I finalize it all and
Right.
put it in hard numbers,
Yeah.
I think it's good for both of us.
Yep, through the chair once again. Your finalized budget is up here. The department head's finalized budget is up here. And for you and them to get together, they're gonna be watching, if history repeats itself, each department is gonna be looking at the fire and the police and to see what their contracts were, what they're gonna ask for before they start really going down to the nitty-gritty for what they need in their own departments.
Well, On the personnel side, all the contracts, all unions are under contract, so that's actually pretty easy.
They still look at each other's departments to see the police may want a 4%, the fire department may want a 7%, the school department, like you said, may want a 5.5%. Start with a 5.5%, they're gonna wind up with an 8 and 9%. We know that right off the bat. So that's where we run into problems.
Yeah, well, and I don't think it's inappropriate for a department head to advocate for their department to get.
Oh, absolutely
resources.
not. If I were a department head, I'd ask for 12% a year.
And then it's my job to say, no, you get 2.
Again, I think every 2 weeks we should meet.
Well,
And then we can cancel.
I think so too, but I'm saying, we also have to coordinate with the tri-committee meeting, the meeting with the school committee. So I'm not gonna hold fast to, I don't want, because if that's the case and it doesn't work into the every 2 weeks, then we're gonna meet 3 or 4 times a month.
I've done that before.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm just saying, instead of flat out looking at it, I've got a schedule here from the school department.
Go ahead.
So, I think, the 8th is our finance committee meeting, and they were gonna, ask to, present to us on the 8th. I'm sorry, March 8th. March 8th,
March 8th?
yes.
It's supposed to present the last week of February.
It's due into the,
Due into
the
him.
28th.
The 28th of February,
Right,
yeah.
and we're gonna meet the 8th. Actually, that's when they're gonna present to us, on the 8th. It's typically done at our Thursday meetings, and that is the Thursday meeting, so it's not a special meeting. So we would meet, I would think in February, where did, I have it circled. Oh, you erased it. February 8th and the 22nd.
So the 8th's the regular one.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, on the 8th, I can give you, I'll have the governor's budget numbers, so the revenue side should be fairly close to what it's gonna be. And then I'll have all the departments' information, and so I can give you pretty much, what's requested versus what's available, and whatever that gap is, we'll say $500,000 for a fund. And then at the next meeting, I could give you options for covering that gap. And if there's a subgroup that wants to meet in between those 2 times to discuss good alternatives for reducing that, that might be a good plan of action.
Now, we should put together a subcommittee to do that.
I would.
I know it's a busy time of year for you, but certainly could use your knowledge in looking at the budget. Is there anyone else? I would like to. Is there anyone else?
To what? I'm
Survey
sorry, I was,
subcommittee.
Budget subcommittee.
I'm free, except for 2
Well,
weeks in
you're
late
already on the-
February.
You're already
It's
on
like the exact time.
you're on the capital review too, so.
Yeah, that might not be good. If I can entice someone, I have a stash of granola bars in my office. I mean, the 2 of you would be fine.
Yeah.
And we'll set up meetings with you, and same thing on the capital
Yeah.
committee. Do you wanna set that up?
Yeah, have you switched places yet?
Yes,
Oh, good.
he's in town, so
Yeah, I mean,
he can take a long lunch.
Yeah, just, if we're looking in February, just not the, if we're doing during the day, just not the 12th or the 13th. Or we'll be in town most of the days.
Well, there's still time in January, too.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
just saying, I didn't know
yeah.
what you guys were
They're,
looking for.
they're due in Friday, so I'm thinking, you know, we could look at, later this month.
Uh,
What, any days better for you?
For me,
Yeah?
I have a conference on next Friday, so that is bad. Next week's kind of a short week with Martin Luther King Day, and then I'm at a conference, so
Yeah.
maybe not next week.
So why don't we look at the week of the 22nd?
Yeah. I am available. Wednesday's on the busier side, but other than that, I'm good.
How about you?
I'm available.
That week?
Want me,
Oh,
let's just go over the 22nd, and I'm here till 7 at least, so. Is in the evening
You
better?
wanna do it, when do you, well, I mean, I'm retired, so.
Oh, I mean, we're expecting them to be extremely long, correct?
How long do you wanna talk? You are an attorney.
I
so-
guess, I mean, we're talking an hour, 2 hours?
we're not gonna set cuts,
Well,
so
I
that's
just
for
didn't
sure.
know what,
Yeah,
I guess I don't know what to expect for.
yeah,
I'd
I'll
say
make
an hour.
Capitally, an hour,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
We might have to meet again, but at
Yeah.
least, an
Yeah, so
hour.
anytime on the 22nd works for me then? I can go
Okay,
with an hour.
what's an optimal time for everyone? Day or,
I have absolutely no preference.
I'm in town.
Mike?
I'm available,
10
like I said,
o'clock?
like you.
11, 1?
I'm available. You tell me, I'll be there with bells on.
Let's go.
11, 1, 2,
3
5.
o'clock.
3
Three?
o'clock
Yeah.
on the 22nd? Capital. And what about the budget? We wanna set a,
Where are we meeting?
oh, we'll
Well,
figure it out.
Yeah,
I'll
but it'll
send-
be here, we'll probably just go to the
Grab it.
conference room.
Yeah, probably already.
Cheers to.
Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays.
Mondays, Thursday, Friday? This is same day. Then you'll be here anyway.
Yeah,
Do you wanna go at 1:30? What, you're.
Well, are we starting before
what?
we, on the budget meeting? This is the budget subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be good just to,
Get
Okay.
things, yeah,
You'll
we'll
just-
see the
you'll know-
requests and,
yeah.
So
what
same
all
day, the 22nd?
You'll know what
22nd.
all the requests were and what the revenue estimate is.
1:30 good?
Yep.
Okay. And then we'll have to, right now, we're gonna have to work on a joint meeting. We'll probably do that again this year, tri-committee meeting. Will
And then we schedule
Will
our.
Jen work that out with us and the Board of Selectmen and the school committee?
Yeah. So,
Uh,
yeah.
Usually in April, isn't it?
Well, we want it as early as possible, because then we have to also schedule the hearing, the
Yeah,
public hearing.
Yeah, but I,
Well in advance of the
Well,
vote and all that.
We have to know the budget so that we know what direction the school's gonna go in, so the
Right.
earlier the better.
right, but I think very early April would probably be
Or March, the end of
the, or
March.
the end of March, depending, I mean, we'll see.
Right,
We're not gonna schedule it now, because it has to be coordinated with everyone, but, it's gonna depend on how
Right.
quickly we arrive at a realistic budget. Okay. So we're scheduled through through February, the 8th, the 22nd. And, the capital plan form review, Doug had sent the capital form that, is being used currently.
Did you wanna talk about revenue?
Did I skip, oh yes, I skipped over that. Yeah, on the, next item is, revenue review planning for 2019 budget. I just, you know, we've looked at fees. I think, you know, it's important to look at every bit of opportunity for revenue and at least evaluate it.
Do you mind passing that on?
And I know that there was an RFP going out for Marina. It doesn't look like that will be producing revenue this year. That's fair enough to say, or?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, there's a lot of upfront capital costs, so,
Upfront cost for them to get it going, so
yeah.
Do we have some, through the chair, do we have someone? Have you-
we
I know
had-
you had one, based on the selectmen's meeting, I think you had one.
Yeah, so I only actually got one proposal, but
one.
it's a fair proposal, and they're qualified, so.
So if somebody were gonna go,
Most likely. I mean, right now, we have to go through and get the permit from the state, so that's kind of the next big hurdle. So this, what I handed out is all our budget lines and a few years' history and a couple of years, just guesstimating forward. But the FY19 is certainly not set in stone, but I don't see too many changes.
this is our present revenue sources, right?
Yeah.
So there's some things we had at one point in time. Pool table
There at the
licenses.
top is, what's that?
I'm looking and seeing some things that we must have had at one point in time, but, don't.
Oh, like they're in
The
zeros?
pool table licenses and down toward the bottom, and
Right, yeah.
Jukebox, pool tables, license for everything.
now the other issue, is the, you know, the change on, the marijuana laws. There's certainly a lot of discussions and pros and cons for a community to do it, but I think, you can't ignore the fact that there is some financial incentive, and it could be fairly significant.
You're touching on a very touchy situation because the federal government just now came out and said they don't care what the states are saying.
Yeah.
It's a federal law, marijuana is illegal. And until Congress changes it, with threading on very thin ice as a town and as a state.
More so as a state, yes.
So I'd be very, very careful at this point to suggest anything. I would put it on the back burner if I were chairman.
The Marijuana Commission released draft regulations yesterday. I haven't looked at them in too much detail, but there is a seminar in a couple of weeks where they're gonna review with legal counsel, so I'll be attending with our town planner.
I just want to state that, you know, it's not the topic per se, it's a revenue source that may be available to any community in the state. And it's a commodity that's in every community in the state
No,
now.
I'm for every revenue source that's legal in the world. I care less what the revenue source, as long as it's legal. And until marijuana is declared truly legal, I think we're still threading on thin ice.
Well, I'm of the opinion for a finance committee, I mean, we're not making that decision. But I think as a finance committee, we need to at least bring it to the attention that there is a potential revenue source, and it would be nice to, you know, as this gets refined, what is that benefit to the
Through the
town?
chair,
It should be factored into the decision process, that's all I'm saying.
I would have to agree. I don't think because of what
The feds?
The feds have said each state is still going through with what has been
Yeah.
passed, so I think we
I
still have to
agree.
look at,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
not
we got-
waiting till the last minute to decide what the town wants to do. You know, we should be prepared for,
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. From a financial perspective, there is a financial resource potentially available. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that we should advocate or yay or nay for it, but I just think it's our responsibility to point out, as a finance committee, that there's a potential revenue source there.
Through the chair, do you know when the selectmen are gonna decide if they're gonna cap at the total local tax and how many they're gonna allow in the town? I know that surrounding towns did the same thing we did at the special town meeting by pushing off the date, but they've come out with, these are how many, permits we're gonna allow.
Yeah.
We're gonna, everyone's pretty much saying they're gonna do the full local tax, but is that something the selectmen are scheduled to look at, or are they just gonna hold off on that also?
So we were gonna hold off until these, regulations, at least until we got the draft of them. So I'd like to wait until they're finalized before we make a decision, but, there's like I think sometime in April, that if you don't have regulations in, then it's no longer grandfathered under the previous way to do it. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna be looking at it in March, early April.
So then, through the chair again, so I'm assuming what you're saying is you wanna build into our revenue plan what phase, obviously we have to wait to see what number would be and then
Oh,
base
right,
something
right,
off
right.
that.
I mean, there's still a lot to come out, but the plan is what, May, or that they're gonna come out with a final?
So I think in March is when they're
March, yeah.
trying to come out with the.
So
finals.
certainly, it's at the tail end of our budget process, but
Yeah, and I would be.
it's gonna become clearer too, I think, what the potential financial impact to a town like us.
Yeah, and I would be a little hesitant to budget almost anything based on a local option sales tax for marijuana, because you have no idea if a dispensary is coming, and if the town did want one, how, it's gonna take them a long time to get here. I don't think
Right.
you'd even
Yeah.
get it in the first fiscal year.
You know, going along with your theory, the state of New Hampshire owns the liquor stores. Why couldn't we own a marijuana distribution store run by the town and take all the revenue?
You said the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah. I'll just stop that there, because that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Anything else on revenue? Okay, last.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why some of these items just dropped down so drastically? For example, Medicaid reimbursement went from 400 to 375, but then you have it going back up to 400.
Yeah, so Medicaid reimbursement is, so it's like all over the place. So in what P is fiscal year 15, so 15 it went from 380 to 322, then went up 46. It's like all over the place. So Medicaid, but it's based on how much is used, and then we get a reimbursement from the state. So it's just basically how many times people go to the doctor. So it's hard to budget for.
And then the only other one was building permits. It looks like it's been going up every year, but then you have it dropping down by about 5,000 next year and then going up again.
Yeah, so I was just trying to be a little conservative there. So S is 18 budget. So the actual last number I have that we collected was 162.
Okay.
But yeah, it could be, yeah, we can move it up to
I was just
165
wondering.
or whatever.
Thank you.
Anything else on revenue?
Yeah, they did, to the chair again. We had, about a year and a half ago, an inquiry by Hard Rock Cafe to come into the town of Webster. And I believe they decided to go to the town of Marlborough with a slot parlor. again, we have 3 exits on 395. I think, you know, if we encourage a gambling casino to come in with a slot parlor, I think we have plenty of room for one. I know we got the gamblers for it, but I think we have plenty of room for one. What do you think, Mr. Willitson?
I think we should make better use of our 3 exits on 395. If a casino is the best option for the town, you'd have to convince me of that.
In other words, you're not a gambler.
No, I'm not a gambler.
But I think there are efforts, big efforts underway to attract businesses
Yeah.
to our community.
Yeah, so I called Chipotle and said, hey, we got a store here, do you wanna come? And so far, not much, but yeah, that's the plan, is to reach out to, and not just national chains,
But mom and pops too.
yeah, if there's,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's, mom and pops are kind of off the beaten path and say, hey, be on Webster Main Street where you have 30,000 cars pass by your store every day. So,
You know what disappeared from Main Street, and I'm talking about Main Street USA, not only Webster. Shoemakers are no more, tailors are no more, barbers are no more. They all seem to be disappearing. And those were local hangouts, local Cracker Barrel, and they were revenue sources. I don't understand the generation of today.
so we have, what's
I don't
the
think
shoe
you're
place?
alone in that.
Zippo and Amazon and, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some barber shops. We have a lot of barber shops actually.
Yes, we do.
So, through the chair, so are we looking at any of the small business rents? Because I know, I have several friends and I'm in a couple of small business, and you can't find anything that is small for under $1,000 a month. And if you are operating very, very lean, you can't afford that.
Yeah.
And we could have a, really great space if we had local crafters, things, just lots of small businesses.
Yeah, and, I know some of the landlords in town, and, yeah, some of them ask more than I think that they probably should. But, if you have someone that's interested, I'm more than happy to try to connect them, and maybe we can negotiate something that's a little more reasonable.
In my town growing up, we had a building that was, they called it the Bazaar, but it was several little, basically cubicles with lots of crafters and
Yeah,
things like that would be something I think
right,
would look into.
we've been talking about doing an incubator space, so, yeah, lots of, it doesn't have to be crafters, it could be business people or whatever, and all you need is a cubicle and, you share a big printer. Better than
Yeah.
being in your garage.
Now, is there any, I know we're trying to, making good efforts to try to match businesses with locations in town, but is there any higher level view of what we would like Main Street or Lower Main Street or whatever to be a dining area or a shopping? Is there any, like, a bigger plan?
Yeah. So there is the master plan, it doesn't go into
Not into
huge.
that depth, yeah, but.
Yeah, it doesn't like, well, we want 3 restaurants right here or whatever. I don't wanna be too picky, I wanna be like, if you're willing to come and you're gonna improve what's there, I'll take you. But, we do talk about like, oh, let's get businesses that complement each other.
That's what I
So
mean,
you
yeah,
have,
yeah.
you have restaurants and maybe an ice cream shop next door where you can go and get dessert after, and something that, people can go to and then go to the concert series, things like that. So we do have that idea, so when we approach businesses, it's, we try to match what will fit in the area.
Through the chair, what about a hotel?
Yep, so there are a couple places that we've been, looking at a hotel, so gathering the data of how many cars pass by, is it visible to, people traveling on 395, how close is it to the exit, things like that.
Through the chair. Several years ago, when Putnam went to antique furnitures and antique we discussed what to do with Main Street, it was suggested that we reroute traffic by the post office and around the back to the railroad station, close that off, put a mall down the center of the street to the Dunkin' Donuts, and have international restaurants on both sides of the street servicing the people, both in the restaurant and out on the sidewalks. And I'd like to know whatever happened to that idea.
Probably
It
stopped.
sounded like a fantastic idea at the time, because Webster's an eating fool and gambling fools. The whole, you could see that by the 7% that, or the 1% we're getting on the meals tax. So whatever happened to ideas like that were being generated?
Well, I've never heard of closing down Main Street, but we have talked about encouraging sidewalk cafes. There's a couple of larger alleyways, the ones right next to the restaurant.
Every Thursday, we had Main Street opened up, and all the merchants had everything on the sidewalk, up until around 1984. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it died.
Before it was born.
Yeah, but it's, you know, if we want to do something, we've got a few international restaurants there, and we can go right down the whole line and make it an international restaurant row.
Yeah, that'd be great. We also tried to do a sidewalk sale in the fall, but the weather wasn't cooperative. And those are things that we want to do.
You know, if it's successful, we can put up a laser canopy and have laser lights all night long.
I think there's lots of thoughts, good things going around. It's just, it takes time, it takes effort by individuals to pull these things together, and it takes,
Yeah, and
it
actually,
takes a
right,
village
and right,
to make it work.
right now, a lot of our Main Street is currently up for, it was on the market. Some of the major buildings are, so maybe as those turn over, there'll be a different zeal for doing stuff like that.
Main Street isn't very inviting.
Is it what?
It isn't very inviting.
Yeah, but I put all those nice benches for people to sit on.
It looks nicer.
Yeah,
It looks
Yeah,
much
and-
nicer than,
you know,
The idea is good, but look at all the buildings, I mean, they just.
yeah, you've gotta put some people in buildings.
yeah, and,
Activity.
and when,
I had a beautiful bridal shop there.
yeah.
That didn't last. Nobody around here has money.
Yeah, I mean, you have to fit the
They
the
are-
retail to the community. Yeah, and no, there are some things that are slowly happening. The furniture stores moving in, and the escape room, and supposedly that Asian market for like 6 months has been moving in, and the Wing It store restaurants opening. But so some things are happening. Also, we had a barber shop close, and so hopefully we just keep moving, so more open versus closures.
I think it's like a two-prong approach, you know, one is to get these things that you just mentioned in town and get people using them and shopping there and eating there. But the other thing is, we gotta look for something that draws from outside the community. And to do those things, you need to take a major pro effort because you can't just dilly-dally with these little ventures. You're not gonna get the draw, and if you get the draw and you flop, you're not gonna get the draw the second time.
Yeah.
So you almost have to make a big jump into it to get the neighboring residents to come into Webster.
Yeah, and you're right, you don't want to flop because then they'll never come back, yeah. Yeah, so,
And we got the lake up there, and, you know, it seems like, again, we'll go back to manpower and volunteers and all that, but it seems like there could be an opportunity to make a unique event Webster.
So, through the chair, I mean, I'm a triathlete, and we had, I mean, the Danskin Triathlon was here, and there was 4,000 participants.
Yeah,
And I did not see anything from the town saying, hey, here, come to our restaurant. It was all, go stay in Auburn, go eat here and there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge opportunity.
yeah,
But we also need the residents to stop trying to run the cyclists over.
yeah.
Yep.
And the triathlon coming, that'll be another, you know, nice event, so.
Yeah.
It's happening slowly.
With the lake, isn't there a way we can have little booths on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, rent them out, and, for sale of, swimming articles, fishing articles, sports clothes, or food, or ice cream, or something besides that little stand down there? Put 3 or 4 down there and see how it goes over, rent them out for the summer?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea. We had the boat and kayak rental, and we had the small restaurant. They had a tough time. But maybe if there's more things going on, there might be more interest in.
A few years back, they had a young man on the lake giving skiing lessons from out of his home, and he had a phenomenal amount of people registered to go to learn how to water ski, and he moved out of town.
They just
But
had,
those are things that we can do, you know, right from the beach there. We can get people in like that, like you said, kayaking or anything. Get them in, get some revenue from them, some permit fees from them and revenue from them, and we get full utilization of the beach and the lake, and everybody's happy.
Well, we just brought a recreation person in too, so, I mean, it's, you know, here it is, January. But I think, you know, there's gonna be things coming, this year and next. First time we've really had a recreation person on board, so we'll see what happens.
And in case she's listening, she's doing a fabulous job.
Good. Next item on the agenda is the DOR report review. I think they presented a overall, assessment to the Board of Selectmen, last month. And, resulted in some changes in the financial team and the financial direction. Still more work to be done. They've, you know, listed probably 8 or 10 areas of things that need improvement, and that's gonna take time. But I think they focused on three areas, and we've talked about all 3 of them, but just to go over, consolidate financial management operations. I think we've started that. The financial team meets regularly. I think they brought out a good point, is somebody needs to oversee that, and whether it's Doug or whomever, it needs that coordination and keeping everything working together and not, you know, each their own little piece coming to the table. But I think that's probably with time gonna change. The next thing is to reevaluate the maintaining a self-insured health claims trust. We've talked about that. We've gone over numbers. We know that there's you know, some changes that need to be made, and we know that there's difficulty.
Yeah, so just to go into that a little bit, so the board adopted section 21 through 23, which lets me negotiate with all the unions. So we started that process. We consolidated our Medicare supplement plans. We did save, I think it was like $17,000 by doing that, so that was good. The other options for moving to the premium-based plans are either go directly through Blue Cross Blue Shield to just get mean, they offer the plans now, but to make them premium-based, they're gonna be a little more expensive than what we offer now, because they're kind of picking up some risk that we currently are. Or we can go through Maya, which is it's the Massachusetts insurance agency for lots of municipalities. They have offered some rates, but again, they're more expensive than our current self-funded rate. And then there's also the Hampshire Council on Governments, which is a collaboration of municipalities out west. We requested an analysis for them to include us, so if they were willing to accept us, that would be cheaper than our current rates. And then the other option is joining with the state's insurance plans called the GIC. Right now, that looks like it would be the most cost-effective, but it also doesn't have Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is our current plan, so that makes it a little more difficult for the transition. So the GIC actually is out to bid with all their plans, so they might come back with totally different plans, and might even include the Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we're waiting until they come out with their plan options before we make a final decision. So that will be in March that we have to negotiate that.
Has there been any thought given to, again, I'm talking private business and not public, of creating a benefit package where you go with a preferred vendor for health insurance, and you pay your proportion, say it's $80 a week or whatever. And you offer other insurances, but you would pay $80 toward that presumably more expensive insurance, and the employee would, if they wanted that insurance, would have to pick up a higher premium.
Yeah, so I've not seen that done in Massachusetts. The community that I worked for in California, they said, we give you this amount for health insurance, and there's whatever, 6
Right.
plans available.
Right.
You pick the one. If you want the more expensive one, you're paying the difference.
Yeah.
That is a potential thing that could be negotiated when I'm negotiating with all the health insurance plans. That definitely would be unusual for around here.
It'd be what?
It would be unusual, but
It's not unusual in Mass, but
yeah.
maybe in the government.
Yeah. I mean, almost everywhere is a percentage split, whether it's 80-20, 75-25. But I can bring it up. I'm not opposed to that.
Just up for discussion.
Through the chair, how do we compare with other towns in Massachusetts? Are our rates and the services better, worse, same?
So we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we have an HMO plan with them. And, I mean, that plan is pretty good, and then it mimics or matches basically what almost every other community has for their HMO plans. The premiums are based on usage. Ours are a little bit higher than some communities, but probably less than others as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And the third recommendation was to consider joining a pension investment reserve trust.
Yeah, so PRIT, rather than managing your own money if you have your own retirement system, the state has a system called PRIT, where the state just manages all the money, and then you don't have to pay the fees for someone to manage it for you. So that is one of the recommendations. And I know the retirement board is looking into it. They currently have a manager, an active manager, and they are coming to their board to explain what they feel is their, what they bring to the retirement board, and why they shouldn't go to PRIT.
And I presume the report from the DOR, which showed return on
Yeah,
investment.
they're very aware of it.
Yeah.
Through the chair. One other thing, on page 2 of this report, they have this, the Park Ave Elementary School construction project.
Yeah.
Still like $2 million outstanding to be reimbursed to us.
Yeah, so actually that's the amount that they had as a, on their list. It's actually not that high, it's more like $1 million that's reimbursable. So what, there's, I mean, this is executive session material, some of it, so we can't go into too much detail, but, there's a potential, legal action, so the contractor's not agreeing with the town saying that they should pay or whatever. So that's holding up the final closeout of the project, and so the last $1 million is basically being held up until that issue is finalized.
How is that all being, I mean, is there anybody on the town side, like they're saying, the town officials should get involved in this thing and get this thing settled?
Yeah, so I was at a meeting tonight, and the Park Ave Building Committee is very aware of it, and they are working with council to try to close this out as soon as possible.
I believe they were in executive session Monday, but I don't know if that was,
And we were in executive session tonight.
okay.
But
Yeah, it's, you know, surprisingly, it seemed, you know, I think a lot of people thought that that project was
was
over and
all
done
but
with.
done. But yeah,
It
no,
was
there's
quite
this
surprising
one legal action that's,
to know that it is not closed out
Holding
yet,
things
you know?
yeah, and the committee is very aware, and they're doing a good job of closing this out, trying to get it finally done.
Will it go to an arbiter, or is it already been? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go into details, but, yeah, they're looking at those kind of options.
Any other questions on the DOR report? Any other comments? Okay, last item is, informational mail around, yeah.
Did we go over the capital plan form?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Yeah, Doug had handed out the current capital plan form. And, it's pretty basic, and I just wanted to make sure. I'm used to seeing, a capital form where you also capture it, and it's sort of thought-provoking for the person creating the capital plan. You know, are you gonna need, accommodations or remodeling to like, case in point, the, fire station to accommodate the new ladder truck they had to, raise the, so,
Well,
yeah,
so the new one, they didn't have to raise it, but it was very close.
well, they raised it though.
The roof, I mean,
Not
not
the roof,
The
the
doorway.
entrance, the doorway.
the weight, I mean, this one that we just bought?
Yeah,
Yeah,
The tower.
yeah,
they had to cut
the
that,
tower truck.
cut it out.
They had
Oh.
to cut it out higher.
Well, that was before me.
Yes.
Yeah, but these are the points that I'm saying,
Yeah, and, I mean, you're right, these are kind of basic, but things like that, I would say that you should be throwing into, actually, that's not an operating cost, but yeah, that should be
Right,
something.
that's what I'm saying, yeah. By adding more things, maintenance, energy, are there gonna be IT costs?
Mhm.
Are there gonna be shipping costs? Is it, does it include shipping to site? Is it gonna are you recommending a service contract, and is it 3 or 5,
Training.
It just doesn't seem to provoke enough.
Not enough detail.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can, maybe when we get these back, the projects that have been requested, I feel like we should just go through and say, okay, what more detailed questions would you actually want to ask?
Okay. Anything else, anybody? Okay, last item is, informational mail. About 3 o'clock today, I got a resignation from Lori Bisevich.
maybe she was disappointed that you didn't bring cookies. Maybe.
I thought that was your job. Although you did bring cookies one time and nobody ate them. All right, any other? Okay, take a motion?
So, before we adjourn,
Yeah.
can we go over what
Yeah,
I'm supposed to do?
as soon as Mike's done reading it.
We're meeting, 1 second.
Well, read it out loud then, because that's what we're waiting on.
So
I'll do it
the,
with you afterwards.
on the police budget, there's those two questions.
Yeah. These budget items,
There's the library usage compared to previous.
the landfill,
Which landfills were contracted out, which weren't.
Or, yeah, which ones were just town operated?
never, yeah.
Can I just copy that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you give me
okay,
my-
I'll just grab
If you
it.
can read my writing.
Take a
I know,
picture.
that's what I was wondering.
Don't-
Not
Should have been a
doctor.
doctor.
Just take a picture of your phone.
Oh, there we go,
Computer all day.
picture, yeah.
So, motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you.
The audit committee, is there a date for that now, or is it just wait?
No, we gotta wait till we get the report.
Till we know when they're coming.
Okay.
Thank you for that cough drop, by the way.
He's gonna try to do that.
The
I meant to bring him.
microphones are still live, so it's saying
Yeah,
down.
yeah. Oh, did you text them?
Is this it?
Hey, are you downstairs?
She said thank
You
you.
wanna, you want
Wasn't
back to
me.
the office?
I don't know whether it's just putting your head down
Yeah.
or
Turning
what.
red, I was like, oh crap, what do I need to do here? Is she gonna need like
Yeah,
that?
you get that little tickle in your throat and it's like, oh,
Stuck on them 365 days.
oh.
What do we ever do without smartphones?
Root beer ones, the old fashioned ones. But I was with some kids the other day, and she took it back.
We weren't as smart.
Or I would've had those in person.
See you on the 22nd. Lots of luck.
So we're down another member.
So I gotta send a note.
Yeah, no, I thought that's what we're, for the cap.
Just said personal.
Yeah, I'm sure it's committed.
Hey Doug?
I've got